we can't build on multiple cameras if we don't understand one camera. And so if we understand the basics, now we can grow. Here we go. We're going to talk about sources, different equipment. Sources is what comes in. We're capturing the video. Cameras, lighting, and video switcher. You need some cables then to connect everything. And then we're going to put it all together. And that's where it's going to get fun. And communication. We talked a little bit about that already with different terminology. And so that sets the framework for why we need good terminology so that we can communicate smoothly. Talked a little bit about streaming already, and we can not include that part if you don't want to, but just a quick bit on streaming because that's in the end what it all goes to. All right, sources. Ideally, you want the same brand and model cameras. Each manufacturer has a different take on how to make color work. Just like Android and iPhone are two completely different phones, they just look at how a phone should work in two different ways. So you take a Sony camera, and you take a Canon camera, you put a Panasonic camera back to side by side, even all in the same product category, prosumer, same specs all the way through, they're going to most likely look different. Even with the white balance and all that kind of stuff. So ideally, is that always a perfect solution? How do you mix PTZ cameras with traditional cameras? Well, you don't get the same model and same manufacturer. So you sort of have to tweak some things and just try to get everything as close as you can. Oftentimes, you might see PTZ cameras as special views where the color you can get away with, maybe it's on the audience, so you can get away with the audience looking a slightly different hue of skin tone than you do on the stage. And you can get away with it, and the audience doesn't, or the viewers don't notice it because A, you're lighting the stage differently than the audience, and so they forgive it. But again, I'm letting you know what the ideal is, and then you come in and just try to make it the best you can. Another source will be computers. And then you might have lower thirds, which come from the computer. Computers, you could also have your slides, your PowerPoint, that kind of stuff. And video players and servers for videos. DVD players would be the most common in churches. But some places have their videos on what we call a video server. And they just click a button and it plays the video and it comes in through your video switcher. So, or lower thirds. Lower thirds, and I skipped that section on the end of the last one, but lower thirds are the title bar at the bottom of the video that give the credit of who that person is. I also do them for the venue. So if I'll take a wide shot of the sanctuary and I'll say this is Memphis First Seventh-day Adventist Church, Memphis, Tennessee, or especially with the way some people name their churches now, you might have Ephesus Seventh-day Adventist Church, Atlanta, Georgia. Okay, so that's what a lower third is. Cameras. So you're talking about cameras. If I can only afford a little camera right now, and until I can get money for more, is it okay? Chip size. People will say, well, how do I know what camera I want? If I go to Walmart and spend $500 on a camera, it's most likely going to be probably like an 1/8-inch chip size. And it might only be one chip. The bigger the chip, the more the chips, usually up to 3. You don't get past 3, red, green, blue. And red, green, blue, because digital video is in red, green, blue format, RGB. The bigger the chip and up to 3 chips, the better the quality. Broadcast cameras are 1/2-inch to 3/4-inch chips. That's how they get the look where the background blurs out a lot easier. That's how they get so that people's foreheads out in the sun aren't shiny. And you say, every time I take my camera out there, their forehead is shiny. What's going on? It's because they have bigger chips. There's what we call more dynamic range. We talk about dynamic range in audio, but in video, it's dynamic range. And that's what this little graph is here. You see from white to black. The bigger the chip, the more shades of white to black a camera can get. So will an inexpensive camera work? Just realize the trade-offs. So how do you make it work when you have cameras of two different qualities? You have to decide what you're going for. Do you want a good quality image when you can, and you just deal with a low quality the other times, or do you just make the whole thing low quality? You have to decide. You can. If something will do SD, or SD is standard definition, HD is high definition, okay? So SD or HD. If a camera can do HD, it will most likely do SD. So you can often go down. You can't go up if the camera isn't compatible. So if it's more important to you to have a matching image, then go down. If it's more important to you and your second camera is lower quality and you don't use it very often, maybe you can get by with the higher definition. That's what we did at our church. We output an HD stream, and we used our second camera in SD with bars. Think back to broadcast TV, back when it was converting from SD to HD, that's what they did. They put bars on the side and graphics, and you still see ads that are in SD format. So it's sad that we're still doing that, but that's just the reality of it. And I used the SD camera for wide shots. Show the church. I didn't show detail. I didn't zoom in and show the pastor talking. Okay? Does that help? Okay? All right, so we talked about chip size. These cameras that Brian's using, I don't know exactly what model they are, but I would wager they're 3rd-inch chips. That's what I'm using at the office, 3rd-inch chips, 3-chip cameras. I'm hoping I can get 1/2-inch chips on my next camera. Just that look that everyone really likes now. Everyone's shooting with DSLRs. You have a picture camera that you're taking pictures, and they're shooting video now with it as well. That look comes with a bigger chip, and that's what people are really liking and really enjoying. You can't get that. It is nearly impossible to get that with smaller inch chips. So the chip size, it just plays such an important role with dynamic range and image quality that the bigger the chip, the better. Thank you for reminding me. Somebody mentioned something earlier. It's like DSLR. There is a sister organization that will remain nameless that called me up and said, yeah, we're getting ready to stream a certain event, and we just got a switcher, and I got some HDMI cables. I'm plugging in my DSLRs into the switcher. I just shrunk. What? DSLRs are designed for pictures. They shoot great video, some of them, a lot of them, but they're not designed for long-term live video applications. What will happen is you'll prematurely burn out the sensor inside. Sensors aren't designed for long-term exposure like that, and so you'll burn them out, they'll get hot, and you'll have problems. In addition to that, you can't do live zooms very easily. Focus, if you have that blur, your controls are up front. How can you smoothly control a camera if you got one hand up here and you're trying to pan, you're trying to follow the path? It just doesn't work. You can spend it? I shoot my close-up camera when I'm doing interviews. I shouldn't say interviews. When I'm doing sit-down, pre-recorded, scripted stuff, where we're doing 5-minute segments, I will shoot my close-up with a DSLR. So there's a place for it, but the place is not for live video. Okay? Connectivity. Digital. Who thinks that digital makes things easier? Good. Digital does not make things easier. Back in the day, we had SD. We ran over a yellow RCA cable, right? Composite video, maybe component if you were really fancy, with the red, green, blue cables. And you could take those wherever you wanted to, and nobody cared. Then we got up to VGA for projectors. We could 100 feet, no big deal. 200 feet, yeah, okay, maybe. Digital, no. So the common connectors, and I think I threw something in, or I just put it in my notes. It might have been in my notes. Somebody just asked me yesterday, actually, about some connectivity options that reminded me of something. So we have 2 primary connectors that we see with video, HDMI, which everyone is probably familiar with. It's on computers now, DVD players, TVs, Apple TV, Roku, whatever your flavor, cable box. So everyone knows HDMI. HDMI is a great cable for consumer-based applications, but because it took off so much, everyone now wants to use it in professional. is it would not be considered a professional connector because you can easily unplug it. One of the things with audio with XLRs is it locks into place. We like that. It can't accidentally be unplugged. So HDMI is a great connector. It carries audio and video, but it has its nuances. Anytime my cameras are HDMI, I got them for the purpose primarily of run and gun news style video, but I also knew there might be applications for live video, not thinking eventually what I was going to use them for, but anyways. So they're HDMI. When I'm in live applications doing recording or streaming though, I'm going to take the HDMI cable, take it back over the tripod and Velcro it in place so it can't come unplugged. Okay? So HDMI is one connector. There is no official spec per se for HDMI cable length limitations, but the general accepted practice is no more than 50 feet, generally 30 feet. That's sort of the general accepted. Now, you can buy 100-foot HDMI cables. We have one. We have 2 of them in our church, and they work in their application, but you're sort of rolling the dice sometimes when it gets into long cable runs. And we'll come back and hit on this a little bit more and why that's important. But HDMI just generally will not run long distance. So it doesn't work in church applications. The next, very similar to HDMI, is DVI, and you may not be too familiar with that one. It was more of the industrial grade. You could screw it in and it wasn't going to come unplugged. But because it was so big and we got smaller computers and smaller phones, nobody likes big connectors anymore, so it sort of went by the wayside. But you still see that on video switchers. My video switcher has DVI, and I like it because one of the limitations of HDMI is it has HDCP. We can thank our friends, remember copyright? We can thank our friends in Hollywood for this. HDCP will not allow you to connect equipment if it thinks that you're making copies. Let's put this into practical terms. I connect my DVD player, Blu-ray player, whatever, my computer. I connect my computer into an HDMI splitter. One goes to a TV and one goes to another recorder. Most likely, that splitter, and everything it's talking back and forth, that computer will shut down, will not output anything, period. Cameras do not output HDCP, so that helps. But, so anyway, so DVI does not have HDCP. Hallelujah. It's digital, but without that extra copy protection layer on it. DVI and HDMI are the same type of signal, i.e., you can take a VGA cable and run it wherever you want, but you can't take an HDMI cable, put an adapter on it, and plug it into an HDMI port. It doesn't work. They make adapters in line for computers that are somewhat powered and somewhat, I've had mixed results with those, and I don't use them personally. I actually buy converters, powered converters that actually change the signal type, just better luck. And in what I do, I don't want to send a piece of equipment out that I get a call on and say, this isn't working, what should I try? I just want to know that it's going to work. So DVI, you can actually take DVI to HDMI. It is the same thing for all intents and purposes. So just to be aware of that. The next type of main connector type is SDI, or HDSDI, 3G SDI. SDI is a broadcast standard, and over digital, what I've read was 320 feet. I saw somewhere this last week in putting this together that they're saying 250 feet, so I don't know quite why that one was saying 250. 320. So you can run that a fair good distance. So SDI is the signal type that you'll often run long distance between cameras and video switchers. So what do you do, which is what I'm doing, what do you do if you have HDMI out but need to get to your video switcher 100 feet away? You get a converter. I have Blackmagic converters. Canex Pro makes them, Aja makes them, the myriad of different ones. So there's an actual signal converter that changes HDMI to SDI and vice versa if you need. So, all right. So connectivity. All right, S-video to SDI. Now we are talking not just a signal conversion, but also a scaling conversion. And so you will want to look for, and I don't even know if I'm sure they do, you're going to pay an arm and a leg, and so you might want to do a couple steps in between. You're going to A, need a scaler, and you're going to B, need a converter. And I don't know if there's a one-box solution that does all of that from SD. There might be, probably is. Actually, there is. I've seen them. Yeah, Blackmagic, a couple others that I've seen. So they're out there. But what you're having to do is you're having to convert. So we're going to talk some numbers here without getting too technical. But you're the diehard, so it's all right, right? SD video is 720 by 480 pixels. HD video is 1920 by 1080, full HD, or partial HD 1280 by 720. So you have to take a signal that is 480 by 720, 720 by 480, and make it your HD signal. So you have to scale it, and a cabled conversion isn't going to do that. All right? You have to do that also with computers, possibly. Computers, we talked about sources. Your computer has to output the resolution that you want. So sometimes if only is VGA, you also need a VGA to HDMI scaler that will output HD 1920. The other thing to keep in mind, as I was talking to this person actually just this weekend, we were talking about VGA and HDMI I was talking about earlier. If you have to scale, try to always scale down. So now if you have a S-Video VHS player that you're having to use, if you're using DVD, import it into a computer and just be done with it. But if you are having to worry about a projector on the back end, or you're wanting to stream an SD, bring everything in HD and scale down. You don't lose quality scaling down, you lose quality scaling up. It's like taking an image and zooming in 200%, okay? All right, so we have connectivity. We talked about manual controls. We hit that earlier. PTZ versus traditional, we've hit that already. Okay, so we talked about that already. Lighting. You can take a decent camera with really good lighting and make it look like an expensive camera. You can't take a really good camera with bad lighting and make it look good. You just can't. So lighting is very important. If you're going to spend a whole bunch of money on video, you might want to also spend a little bit of money on some lighting. You can do that really inexpensively, and we'll talk about that. It's just video lighting is different than theatrical lighting. If you've got a lighting designer, maybe this doesn't apply in your churches, but they want to do all these blues and these reds, and they want to do this and they want to do that, and they make it look really cool because I work in a theater down the road and I know lighting. Great, it might look good in person, but will it look good on video? And so just understand that there are some differences. You want even lighting. All right, so in here you see these two little silver can lights. Those are inexpensive. These ones are LEDs. You can get those in traditional incandescent lights. Inexpensive, probably one of the most inexpensive lights you can get in the incandescent version. LEDs are going to cost more. Can lights are one of the most inexpensive light sources, but they're not a pretty light. Well, how do we get even light? Well, okay, you can spend more on lighting fixtures. Or somebody was commenting to me that the Buford Church has really good lighting. It's one of the things they did. They have just a whole row of can lights. Here's the trick. And I went to one of our sister organizations, and they wanted help with getting their video quality a lot better. They're using a Walmart-style camcorder to stream, and they said, we need to do better. One of the first things I did, before I even brought the camera and the gear out, I looked at their lighting. They had a row of can lights, similar to these, but incandescent, pointing at the stage. Well, they also had, let's back up here. Let's also talk about color temperature. You want to have the same color temperature lights all the way across for your stage. You don't want to have fluorescent lights over here. You say, oh, okay, I got these track lighting from Home Depot, and I put them up, and they work, but I want to get a little more, so I'll go get some can lights because they said those are good. So I'll put those up, and let's throw some LED lights up too. We just need a little bit more over here. Well, you've got 3 different color temperatures. First of all, I said, well, don't hang the track lights. This is a temporary setup that they did for this particular event. Don't hang the track lights. Just take them down. Forget them. Why? We have different color temperatures. Fluorescent lights are one color temperature. Incandescents are another color temperature. We talked about color temperature and how the camera sees it. You all want one color temperature across lighting up your stage. All right? So we got that cleared up. Well, now we have a whole bunch of can lights that are shining spotty lights. We have a spotlight here and a spotlight here, and it feathers out, but it's a bright spots all over the stage. So I sent them to town to get to the nearest music store. What we call fusion is a short, or diffusion, which is just a semi-clear gel paper that goes in front of the light. All that does is just like a lens over your car headlight. It just evens it out. So all 8 can lights now have all this diffusion across it. Now all of a sudden I have this even glow of light across the stage. 3ABN will do that. They'll take their 2,000 watt flood spotlight. They'll hang 6 of them for some events, and they'll put some diffusion or some spun or different things, same all principles, in front of their lights to light up and have an even flood of light all the way across the stage. So we want even lighting. It doesn't have to be expensive. That's my point. We want backlighting. This would be secondary to having even lighting across the front, but backlighting will help your subject, your pastor, stand out from the backdrop, from the background. Ideally, it lights up the shoulders just a little bit. You'll see that on camp meeting. They spend some time making sure their lighting is right for camp meeting streaming, so that you see some little rim light or shoulder light, just lighting them up, and they stand out from the backdrop. So backlighting is very beneficial for that. All right, same color temperature. We dove into that already. So we've talked about the video. We're working down, just like we did this morning with microphones, we're working down the signal path. We've talked about cameras. So now let's get to the video switcher. And the whole brains of the operation. This is where it all comes in. So you have all these different sources coming in, so now you get to decide what goes where. If it combines audio and video, it usually does. I recommend you do. Different video switchers add delay to the signal process. So if you are combining audio and video after the video switcher, audio comes straight from the soundboard into your recorder, well, there's no delay on that. Your video signal has been delayed, maybe by half a second, but it starts to get noticeable. And so if you bring it all into the video switcher, it's applying the same delay. Some of them even have time correction built into it. So I recommend running your audio through your video switcher and bringing it all together. Like I mentioned earlier, HDMI will also carry audio. So once it's in the video switcher, it all comes out as one on one cable. Now, an application where I have used the onboard audio capabilities, the audio mixer, they already had their hands full trying to figure out house sound. They're volunteers, and they do it once a year, and whatever the case may be. And there were no mics for audience. That was just not an option. We were lucky to have a good signal from them to the video. HDMI carries audio. So does SDI, HD-SDI. Well, from the camera, I used the on-camera microphone. I used a shotgun mic. I didn't use the one in the handle. So this. It comes into the video switcher anyways. So I routed that to a second channel and just added a little bit of that for audience singing and audience reaction, just sort of monitored a little bit. So I have done it, but if you can, let the audio handle audio. You don't have any kind of EQ processing. You don't have any kind of extra stuff going on. And if your video person is concentrating on switching video, and we'll see an example here later on how fast-paced it can be, you don't want them trying to be monitoring audience levels. We've done all sorts of different things. When I was at Southern, we did an event actually connected to this organization. And we needed some audience mics run in because the venue was providing a good quality signal from the house, but no audience, no streaming or recording consideration. So we put 2 audience mics out in the audience, and those cameras were controlled in the back with controls and all this other kind of stuff. Another connector type, I'll just throw it out there, is Triax, which is a very thick cable. It carries audio and power and tally lights and communications and all sorts of stuff through one connector. Phantom power, whole 9 yards. So we plugged in 2 audience mics to that camera right there and ran it back in. And then on the back module that this one cable comes into, there's outputs. So then we ran that into a separate mixer and a person. So there's applications where you can just use the inputs there to get the signal where you want, to give you some flexibility. It goes back to, somebody was telling me about plugging in some speakers. They had a situation just today where they needed better sound in their sanctuary but didn't have the money for, well, we can do this another way. And they plugged them into their organ speakers because they could. Saved bucos of money and sounded a lot better. They didn't have to spend a dime. So it's sometimes trying to think, all right, how can I use this? Maybe this isn't what they intended for the application, but maybe it works. And maybe it works quite well. So you can use, this camera has two inputs, two XLR inputs on the side of it, high quality. Run two condenser microphones. I didn't even talk about setting up microphones in different XY patterns and stuff, but set those two for your audience. Off you go. You have a signal now to your board. So once you understand the equipment, now you can say, all right, well, I can do this. How can I get from here to here? Well, maybe I could try this. Maybe I could try that. And so just being creative sometimes. You've got to think, production people have to think on the fly and using the resources. I haven't been to a Super Bowl production backstage and watched them, but I can almost wager that professional audio engineers, video engineers are always, and doing stuff that is unconventional because they have to, and because the resources and tools are already there to do it that way. So, all right. So the switcher then selects which source will be seen by the viewer, or sources. If you're doing like a lower thirds, you might have two sources up at the same time. And then all right, the video switcher. I've talked a lot about buying permission. This is especially select based on your current and future needs. It's easy to get short-sighted, and it's even as you plan, say, all right, I might not need X, Y, and Z capability in the future, and then you do. You say, oops. You can't always plan ahead for what somebody might ask for, but if you're in communication with your pastor and you know where the church is going, hopefully you can eliminate some of the, oops, we should have bought X instead of Y. So you won't always get the right piece of equipment, maybe, but if you can try to think about future growth. The video switcher I have is not Blackmagic, and I love the video switcher I have. More expensive than a Blackmagic switcher. And Blackmagic was a little early in its day when I got mine, the Unions. It allows me to send 3 different mixes at the same time. You say, well, what's the purpose? Why? So we just got a video switcher at my church. All right, well, I'm just video switching for streaming, right? Sometimes there's a guest speaker that comes and they want to put their laptop up at the front. Okay, great. But we also have ProPresenter at the back, so ProPresenter goes to the main screen. How do I get the projector, the laptop from the front up to the main screen? Well, I need a video switcher, right? Well, I could use a simple Radio Shack push-button A/B switch, but what happens to the main screen when I do that? It flashes, no signal detected, whatever the case may be, right? I still have to get the input into my video switcher. Why don't I just spend a little bit extra and get a video switcher where I can send a second output out to my main screen? Now I can send whatever I want to my main screen, projector 1, or laptop 1, laptop 2, whatever the case may be. Well, when I started piecing all the different aspects together for switcher 1 versus switcher 2, the cost was about the same, but I had extra functionality. So this is what I'm thinking, planning for the future. What other options can I get? I haven't used all 3 outputs on my switcher at the office yet, or have I? But I know I use 2 very regularly. I will often stream and do IMAG at the same event. You don't want audience shots in an IMAG situation. People see themselves up on screen and they laugh or whatever the case may be. We're not at a ball game where we want them cheering up and down or doing weird things, right? I can switch my IMAG stream separate from my recording stream. So it gives me functionality. Well, then you say, all right, what's a third option that I might want that third output for? Well, say I have a conference monitor up in the front so the speaker can see their PowerPoint or the singers can see their lyrics. Well, now I can take the output from the computer, instead of going through a splitter, I run it in to my switcher, and I run that third output just to that conference monitor. And I can put whatever I want there. I have room to grow. I have room to do things. I'm not stuck in a box because I wasn't thinking about other options. I will say what attracted me to the Sony, and again, this is buy the equipment for your mission. What attracted me to the Sony was having multiple outputs, which is, I knew I needed that. I needed at least 2, and this one gave me 3, so I didn't complain. The data video I couldn't find in that price point with that many outputs. So that's why I went that way. It's not, okay, so I think I have it later on. Yeah. Blackmagic. Blackmagic, if you can get past the name and nobody's going to kill you over it, makes equipment at a very affordable price point. And I just saw a hands-on live scenario of some of the issues I've heard about but hadn't experienced. When you're looking at cars and you want I'm not even going to say a Ferrari because we're talking Ross video switchers that are $50,000 plus to get true stuff. So let's just keep it down here in the lower end under 10,000. If I want a Ford, or if I go and look at a Ford Fiesta and I take it to a Audi, it's going to be a little bit different, right? I'm going to treat some things a little bit differently. I want to accelerate. I'm going to have to, I can't just stomp on it and go, right? But you understand the limitations for the price. You say, all right, I can live with that. But there might just be some things that don't work as well. In some situations, it's fine. Doesn't matter. Doesn't affect you. Move on. It's a great option. And I'm not dishing on Blackmagic. All right? Again, I'm saying the right equipment for the right price. But the more I read about Blackmagic, there's a Blackmagic switcher up here. There's a place for it. I'm glad I didn't get a Blackmagic switcher for the office. So what is the scenario I ran into this last weekend? The Blackmagic switchers are super sensitive on their HDMI inputs. They need a really, really strong signal. Anything over approximately what I've read is 15 feet. Forget it. So what was this church trying to do? This church was running cameras remotely. Well, they didn't convert to SDI. They converted to HD-based-T. Another terminology for you. When I was in college, my now wife, just a friend back then, and my other friend and his girlfriend, fiance, friend, whatever, 4 of us would get together fairly regularly, and we'd be talking AV stuff. He was another media production major, just like I was. So we'd be talking, and they'd be talking over there, and they'd say, it sounds like the alphabet threw up. There's all this different letters and terminology that we use, but it just makes things a lot easier to explain. So there's another HD-based-T. Well, what that does is convert digital signals over Cat5 or Cat6. And it's used a lot in the integration market where they install AV in buildings. It worked. He plugged the HDMI cable on the other end of that into his flat screen monitor that he was looking at. Worked fine. Plugged it into the Blackmagic switcher, didn't work. So we knew the signal was coming through, but it wasn't strong enough for the switcher. So we took the HDMI cable, just the HDMI cable, plugged it into my camera. It worked. But there's like a 6-foot HDMI cable. So what's the point? You have to have a strong HDMI signal for Blackmagic switchers to work. That's one of the limitations. We have a Blackmagic switcher at our church, and we're converting to SDI, and it works fine. But I'm running like 6 feet of HDMI into a converter and straight SDI. What he was doing was converting it twice. He was converting it to Cat5, back to HDMI, and then in.
See, we're going to go directly from the camera, SDI, all the way up.
Yeah, you should be fine.
Okay.
You should be. Another model of the Blackmagic switchers don't allow you straight audio analog input. It requires digital audio. So then you have to get a digital analog to a digital audio converter. You start adding up the prices. All I'm getting at is just realize that when you spend $900 or $1,000 on a video switcher, you're not getting a $7,000 video switcher. So you have to understand that there are trade-offs. Hdmi, we call it a mix engine or a mix effect. It allows you to mix different outputs differently. The mixer I was talking about, I was surprised I could get that much functionality in that price point. That's what I was looking for. That's what I was hoping for, and I found it. But it's not really a true mix engine. It's sort of pseudo. I've only got 2 layers of buttons, and I have to hit a button to go over to the other one. So it's, but I bring this up because if you're looking at switchers, it'll say 1 ME or 1.5 ME or 2 ME. Just realize it's mix engines and how many you can mix simultaneously, generally speaking. All right, aux outputs, that's what I was talking about on mine. I have 2 aux outputs, additional outputs that go out. And the difference between an aux output and a program out, per se, is aux will usually let you route what you want to it. So that's how I can say, all right, I want that computer going to my stage monitor, boom, done, because an aux output. I can route it and assign it. DVE is a digital video effect. If you're switching on a computer, it'll probably have that. But it allows you to move inputs down to where you want. It allows you to scale them. It allows you to do stuff to the video inputs other than just mixing it and switching it. Okay. Multi-view is a common output now on most switchers, which will take all of your inputs and your outputs and show them up on one screen. And you can set what is shown where. All right, so we've talked a lot about this already. We have overflow rooms, we have cry rooms, mother's rooms, streaming, just some of the things to consider on your projection screens and recording. I would generally say that your recording and your projection screens are the 2 main different types of video that you're working with. You may also have a conference monitor or something, but remember iMag versus streaming. Cabling, we're going to skip through this pretty quickly. If not HD already, prepare for it. DVI, HDMI, we've already talked about that. SDI, Cat 5 and 6. Cat 5 and 6 is we're talking about HD-based T. There's other proprietary ones as well that you can get that are often cheaper. So if you bring HDMI into a converter, it'll just say sometimes like a HDMI to Cat 5 extender. Just something to be aware of, HD-based T now is a recognized standard. And so if you go with a standard, if you get brand A and it stops working, you can get brand B receiver and plug it in and it all should work, theoretically. So that's the advantage of using an HD-based T standard versus just some proprietary. Fiber optic for really long distances, I don't think we'll have any of that in most of our churches. Continuity, same white balance, talked about that. Proper exposure, watch headroom. When you're switching between cameras, this is where it sort of now gets a little more exciting. You want to be sure that all your cameras match. White balance, we talked about that. All your cameras' exposure is similar, so that you don't have one, when you're switching between cameras of the pastor, you don't have one bright and one dark and one in between. They all match. And your headroom between shots is all very similar. You don't want some headroom this much, another one this much, and it sort of, when you're looking across the magazine is always the same height. The first line of picture, the first line of text, whatever, it's always going to be the same height. Well, it's just continuity. In video, it's the same way. We want the head to be in the same spot. The viewer is looking at this part of the screen, and when the head is somewhere else, they have to shift where they're looking. Come on. Camera placement. We'll skip through this because there's just some more exciting stuff I'd like to get to and time is running out. What are you wanting to capture? Have variety and have steady footing. We talked about tripods. Leave room for the operator if necessary. So when you're looking at where your camera is going to go, be sure that you have enough room for the camera to stand there and not be crowding. If you're crowding stuff behind it or you're right up against the wall, well, it can't move around because they're sandwiched in. What are you wanting to capture? Do you want audience shots? If that's the purpose of the camera, then it can be off to the side so it can be shooting the audience. If it's the stage, make sure it's in a prime spot. Generally speaking, you see how Brian here has them dead center. He has 2 center. You want a straight-on shot. You always want a straight-on shot. That's going to be your primary go-to shot. And then you'll have some other ones maybe off to the side, maybe other side of the aisle, whatever the case may be. My common setup is 1 dead on center and 2 off to the side. One sort of, like, say this was a sanctuary in a larger setup, I'd have 1 there, I'd have 1 there, and I'd have one on the outside of that row. So that gives me a good side angle, and the one where it's a more side angle, I'll make sure I have a good shot of the piano so that you can get the keyboard, that kind of stuff. So it gives me a different variety of the stage. It gives me a nice, or the one on the outside will give me a nice wide shot of the whole sanctuary so I can see the whole place filled up. And then the two, one dead center and one just a little bit off center, are the two that I'm going to use the most for the speaker. I'll just, while I'm on that really quick, I will have predefined backup positions, so to speak. My center camera is always a close-up on the speaker. When that person walks to the podium, you get on that as fast as you can. Just bam. I mean, you can almost lock it down, just the height, up and down, tilt up and down. My side one is going to be a medium shot of the speaker. And my outside one is my wide shot, dump shot. So in between stuff that's going on or other two cameras are going crazy, I want to have another shot that I can jump to in a backup. So that's my dump shot. So those are always my defaults. And then as I need to throughout the program, I'm adjusting those as we need. But that's how I work. Selecting your shot, where's the action? What's going on stage? Be sure not to, if you have a music group, make sure you're showing the group. If it's a musical bridge, you don't want to be on the singer standing there waiting for the bridge to be over. If there's people in the audience who are reacting, are you showing that? So that's how I determine what shot I'm going to use. Watch the headroom, we talked about that. Zoom in versus zoom out, we talked about that earlier about the different emotions that portrays. We talked about video here helps tell the story. Always have a reason for why you're selecting the shot that you do. Don't just, I want something different. Okay, who cares? Unless the reason is, I've been on this shot too long, I need to create some visual variety, we talked about that earlier. So I need to take a medium shot to show some context and then come back to my close-up shot just to help keep the viewer engaged. Communication, everyone needs to have constant communication so you can tell your camera operators what you need from them. And have a backup, this is, like I say, have a backup in case of radio failure, batteries die, whatever the case may be. They all know where to go. And there's different ways of doing that as well. Established terminology, we've talked about a lot of that. And what you use in your situation might be different, but the director is always in charge. All right, so let's take a look at this. This is, I think, will really help you see now what's going on.
Dissolve 4. Slow dissolve. Okay, 4, you're live. Ready, 3. Go ahead and start slowly pulling out. Dissolve 3. Yep. Nice and slow, 3. You're off 4. 1, going really tight to his hands. And go soft. Rack your focus. Ready, 1. Dissolve 1 and bring it into focus as you start to go up to his face. Bring it into focus. Nice one. Go ahead and lock down on his face. Ready, 4. Dissolve 4. 3, go ahead and come wider and we're going to start a push. Start your move, 3. Dissolve 3. You're doing slow dissolves here, guys. Nice job staying with your
Little
shots.
break.
Ready, 4. Dissolve 4. 1, go in on his hands. 1, go in on Hunter's hands.
Here he comes.
Guitar hands. Ready, 1. Dissolve 1. You're off 4. Ready, 3 on a push. 1, move him slightly to the right side. And 3, start your push and dissolve 3. Keep going in Hunter. Nice, guys. This looks amazing. Ready, 4. Slowly zoom in. Dissolve 4. One, go in tight so that we have guitar and head medium shot. Put them on the right side and we're going to pan. Pan to the right. Ready, 1. Dissolve 1. You're off 4. Nice and slow, 1. Nice and slow. 3, come a little bit wider. And start your push.
Susanna.
Dissolve 3.
Susanna.
Into Susanna.
You're on 3.
Dissolve 3. How did we get to 3? Ready, 4. Dissolve 4. Ready, 1 on a push into Susanna. Dissolve 1. 3 tight on Susanna. Ready, 3. Dissolve 3. Keep pulling out 3. I like it. I like it. Ready, 4. Dissolve 4. Ready, 1 on a push. Dissolve 1. Ready, 3 on a push. Dissolve 3. 4, give me something. We're speeding up. Ready, 4. Dissolve 4. 1, go ahead and pull for me. Dissolve 1. Ready, 3. Dissolve 3. Yep, keep pushing in 3. Nice. Keep pushing it in 3. Keep it going. Ready, 4. Dissolve 4. We'll be coming back to 3. Keep pushing in. Dissolve 3. Yeah, 1. We'll start pulling. Dissolve 1. Coming back to 3.
I let it run there for a while because if you're not used to what you're looking at, it takes a little bit to get used to.
Wow. So the guy in the back, he's the one that is operating the lower computer.
The graphics, the lyrics, yeah.
Wow. The director is not on any equipment at all. He directs everybody.
He didn't have time to be on the equipment.
In this setup. Now, when I'm doing it, I don't have a director and technically this guy standing up is called the director, and the guy sitting down is the technical director.
Oh, he's the technical director?
That would be the terminology. The video switcher is the technical director.
Oh, okay.
But I'm often doing both. Doing both of those.
You got a double pay, huh? Now, where is this? What?
This is
A setup like this, what we're looking at, about what, 20, 30,000?
that video switcher. Do you notice how it had multiple rows of buttons?
Right.
So we call a multiple ME switcher. That switcher, I don't know. I haven't priced it, probably 50,000, 20. There's just a switcher. Now, did you notice that he said you're only on camera 4? The technical director was saying you're clear 4. You're clear 4. Only on 4. So I'm going to guess that camera 4 didn't have tally lights. You know what tally lights are? Let you know when you're off and not. So that means that they have some pretty good high-end cameras in there, most likely. So that setup is not cheap. Let's look at a couple things here really quick. Do you notice how at the end it got faster? The music picked up more energy, and he's like, all right, we're getting faster here, we're getting going. So you're doing your video switching according to what the content is. Letting operators know what is going to happen. Somebody know on Susanna, or the one call I really liked is we're going to come back to you. I'll often do that. We're going to dump out to 4. We're going to, whatever the case may be. So they know what to expect. The director and I didn't know what to call him, so the video director.
That's the guy actually selecting the shots, right?
Right. Did you notice that there was only 3 cameras being used? This is what blew me away. That pace was with 3 cameras. There was 4 cameras on there, but he was only switching between 3. I went back and watched it again. I was like, what? So having volunteers that, A, know what needs to be done. He wasn't, say, all right, very often. He wasn't, all right, 1 close-up, no, zoom in a little more, pan right. He wasn't doing that. The operators knew what they needed to do. So he's off with them. They're finding the next shot. Bam, 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 bam. When I realized it was 3 cameras, I'm like, man. So you can see having your terminology down so you can talk quick. Everyone knows what's going on. Yeah. I'm not going to run this one quite as long, but this one I actually have we see this and then we see the finished version. This is the Florida Hospital Church down in Orlando, Adventist Church. Much more cameras, many more cameras. This is an Adventist church. They actually stream their services, broadcast their services over to the hospital. So there is, it is what it is, but it's a volunteer base as well.
And then remember, we're just doing straight cuts on here. Go 1. Q3. Go 3. Q1. go 1.
Cut 1.
Q2, ready 2.
Cut 2.
Q3, ready 3.
Cut 3.
Q1, ready 1.
Cut 1.
Q4, ready 4.
Cut 1. 4.
Yeah. Q7, ready 7.
Cut 7.
Q2, ready 2.
Cut 2.
Q1, ready 1.
Cut 1.
Q3, ready 3.
Cut 3.
Q2, ready 2.
Cut 2.
Q1, ready 1.
Cut 1.
Q4, ready 4.
Cut 4.
Q2, ready 2.
Cut 2.
Q1, ready 1.
Cut 1.
Q2, ready 2.
Cut 2.
Q3.
Remember I said, I mean, way back, this is all, there's art and there's science. What you do is art. You know, that creative decision. So let's take a quick look at the finished version here. All right, you got the idea. Yeah, creative decision, but he had a lot more cameras on that one. Notice the importance on team. The whole team knew what was going on. The whole team was communicating. You can't run a multi-camera setup on one person, and you can't micromanage a team. They all have to. Team is critical. Yeah, I think we'll stop after this one. You notice how all the lyrics were just bold on the bottom, straight white text with. There's usually an outline, a black outline that goes around that to help stand out from any other white stuff. We talked a little bit earlier about alpha. I was talking about how I do my lower thirds. I'll do a alpha channel is if you actually run it in with a second input that's telling it what to key out, high-end switchers. So I often do a Chroma Key or a Luma Key, which is pulling out the green or pulling out the brightness. And you can also do a mask where you can crop out part of it. Consider font size. I think we'll stop there. I think we've talked a lot about the other parts that I've got in there.